I don't.
I don't have it.
Yeah, pass it around.
Oh, we are stopped by extension cords.
We stopped by extension cords.
Yeah, the last thing we do is turn a closet.
Okay. Okay, so this sheet. Review on Mukzeh, we have in like the middle of the page, they have extension cords. So we're discussing basically what we're doing over here, those who are not here. Whatever's absolute Mukzeh, you're circling. Whatever's non-absolute, you're just underlining. I mean, it's easy to remember because circling meaning you're circling it. It's completely Mukzeh. Underlining it, it's sort of part of it is Mukzeh. And whatever's not Mukzeh, you just cross out because it's not Mukzeh, it doesn't belong here. So up to extension cords. Extension cords. So what's the cat? So extension cords is absolute or non-absolute? Non-absolute. Torn shoelaces.
Absolutely, they are useless.
We're talking about torn that is not usable. I mean, in other words, I'm not talking about your shoelaces tore, but he's still using it. It's on your shoe and you're still tying your shoes with it because it's still good enough. It works. Obviously, it's usable. That's not, no, you can't tie your shoelaces because your shoelace became Mukzeh. You're still using it, right? You have to, yeah.
So on Shabbos, a string, like, I guess from a piece of my clothing, like fell off. I don't really
Tears
know.
off your clothing. So that,
And it was
and
on
it's-
my bed and it was garbage.
it's a non-usable item. It becomes Mukzeh. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Be
So if I
careful.
could take this little tiny string and go like this, in garbage.
Yeah. Or you could blow it. You're allowed to blow Mukzeh. Stamps that you put on nail, some people still use my stamps. It's more absolute Mukzeh. Shatnez, garments that are shatnez.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've seen looking on a book of Mukzeh, and they write over there, which I was a little surprised. I guess they have some source. Stamps are absolute Mukzeh. Shatnez is a garment that's shatnez. So they write over there that a garment that wasn't checked for shatnez, being that it could be shatnez, is also absolute Mukzeh. That's what they write. I mean, I don't know if that's accurate because most of the garments that we check for shatnez are not shatnez. So to say it's mukzeh because it wasn't checked, because it needs to be checked, maybe it's shatnez. I'm just telling what I've seen, but I'm not sure if that's accurate. Broken dishes, unusable. Broke and it's not absolute mukzeh.
You have the intention to like do with craft with that? Are they non-absolute Mukzeh or are they still absolute? You have like a new
You have to be
intention for-
very specific. So the dish broke. And as it broke, it's not usable. And now it's like, oh, it's garbage. Okay. And then a few minutes later, you said, hey, you know what? No, I can use it. It already became mukzeh.
But if you never said it was Mukzeh, it broke and you went.
It depends. If right when it broke, like it was immediately in your mind that's, oh, I'm gonna use the craft. It really depends. It varies according to how you decide it. It's tricky. Construction material, sheikhet's knife, a rolling pin, non-absolute, a shofar, shofar.
Okay.
It's a keli. It's a keli. It's a functional item. It's not a delicate item. It's not like a sheikhet's knife. Oh, you think about a sheikhet's knife, a shofar. No, it's not so delicate as shofar. You let your kids blow. I let my kids blow it on shofar. It's not delicate that I'm going to blow with it. It's going to get damaged. It's going to. A shoe brush, non-absolute. Tiles, it's really part of construction. I know I wrote it separately, but whatever. Absolute. Money. A stapler. Non-absolute. Schacht. A blow dryer. A car. Non-absolute. the car is in the way, you can move the car. So the story about the Rebbe, it wasn't on Shabbos, there was a car blocking the Rebbe's car, the Rebbe couldn't drive through. So a whole bunch of them came together. Apparently couldn't find the driver, the Rebbe had to go to Iyar or go home, wherever it was. So they all got together, picked up the car and moved it, so the Rebbe's car goes through, very simple. Okay. Pot, an empty pot,
Not Mukzeh.
an empty pot. A pot of food is not muktzeh. An empty pot is non-absolute muktzeh. Because what is a pot meant to be used for? The cooking. Would you cook on Shabbos? No. So in other words, if you open up your closet, then you have empty pots there. You can't just move it around.
So you can't.
Now, if you need the space, many times you will be able to, because all non-absolute muktzeh could be moved if you want to use it in a permitted way, if you need the space. So by default, many times of course you can move it, yeah, because it falls into those conditions. But let's say the pot is in a place where there's a leak and it's leaking in the pot, and the leak is going to cause rust to the pot, it's going to get damaged, it's going to make a mess. You just want to move the pot out of the way. The pot is muktzeh, an empty pot. Muktzeh.
If it's a normal thing to let a toddler play with pots and pans,
Okay.
would that still be Mukzeh?
So you're saying that it should become non-muktzeh at all because it's not only for cooking, it's also for playing. It's a good question, actually. I still have my videos of my children, one of my kids. My kid took out all the pots in the closet and he set it all up. That he's walking from one pot to the other. It's like a whole thing with pots and then so it could be. It's not really. I don't know. It's not really meant for it. It's not like that's what pots are for.
They should be.
It's not like parents are excited about the kids doing it. It's just that parents let them do it because it's having a good time. So you allow them to do it, but it's not like that's what it's meant to be used for. I don't think it's going to change the status into something that's for permitted use and permitted use, which then it becomes okay. I don't think it's going to change that status because it's still, that's not what it's for. Just the kids do it because it's your own child. You let them do it. It's not like someone else's child is going to come. You're not going to allow it. That's how it is. Yeah.
Don't put empty pots like upside down on the ground, like food.
So you'll have to use it, move it to use it in a permitted way. But you're going to move it to protect it. In other words, in simple words, when is non-absolute muktzeh an issue if you're moving it to protect it? Or you're moving it without a purpose. That's when you know how to move it.
So with the blech example, you're putting it on. Like, on Shabbos, and then you're using it.
We spoke about there's a leniency, some opinions say you could take an empty pot, and everyone agrees to it, by the way, but there are opinions that's acceptable opinions that say you could take an empty pot, put it on your blech upside down, directly over the fire, and then put a pot of food directly on there. So they say it's similar to putting food on top of a pot. Like everyone says you can put food on top of a pot that has food inside. But a pot that's upside down without any food, to put food on top of that, when that empty pot is directly over the fire, some opinions say you could do that too.
My follow-up to that would be like, let's say you put the food on, and then you put the food off. And then you don't want the pot just sitting there,
Why?
because, there's too much heat for a long period of time. But without technically protecting the pot, you wouldn't just take it off.
It's going to damage the pot. I mean, I'm not sure what the practical applications, but the theoretical application that you want to move the pot because it's not good for the pot, let's say, right? Let's say, which I don't think usually that's an issue. Then, but if that's the case, you wouldn't be allowed to move the pot because you're moving the pot to protect the pot. Let's say, exactly. Yeah. Okay, a lulav on Sukkot is absolute muktzeh. Not an esrog. Esrog is not. Uluv is, esrog is not. Fruits that fell on Shabbos, that fell that Shabbos, not on Shabbos, the Shabbos before. It says on Shabbos, it means that Shabbos. Absolutely, yes. Scissors, a ball.
Not Mukzeh.
A ball is a machlekes if it's, yeah, it's a machlekes if it's non-absolute. No, it's a machlekes if it's absolute, or if it's not muktzeh at all. Yeah. It's an interesting case. It's I don't know exactly how to explain it thoroughly, but basically, there are the opinion that say that the ball is not a keli. It's not a keli. It's round. It's not a keli. Okay, I'm saying that there's more explanations to it. I never went into in depth, but that the bottom line is it's a machlekes, and the Alter Rebbe says that the minig has been to be lenient, but it's good to be strict. So growing up at home, my father allowed, the way it was that my father would allow the children who were under bar and bas mitzvah to play with ball, because there are lenient opinions that are reliable opinions. Alter says the minig has been to be lenient, and we don't need to stop them because they have what to rely on. But there is an opinion that says you're not allowed. So the way my father went, that what it was, and said under bar bas mitzvah we could play, but over bar bas mitzvah shouldn't. Yeah, it's clear enough.
The Syrians, they all play basketball.
Okay, so they're not discrediting Shabbos. There's a reliable opinion that says you could be lenient. Whatever says those who do it have what to rely on, but obviously it's best to avoid it. Items that need to be returned. You went to the store, you bought a something that's not even muktzeh, it's just an item that needs to be returned, and you're very particular about this item that no one should touch it, open the box, use it at all, but otherwise you come back to the store and the guy will say, hey, it doesn't look new, it was opened, it was touched, there was this, you can't return it. So that item becomes absolute muktzeh, even if it's an item that's not muktzeh at all. A pen, non-absolute. Eggs laid on Shabbos. Eggs laid on Shabbos, meaning that Shabbos, not this egg was laid last Shabbos, it means that Shabbos. You have to be the same thing, by the way. Shabbos, you have to. Matches.
Are they lit matches, like used matches or not?
Very good. I was going to get to that. Excellent. Matches. I mean regular matches. Regular matches are non-absolute muktzeh. A used match is absolute muktzeh. You don't think about a used match as muktzeh. Oh, it's used. What's the problem? People think about a match that you can make a fire with. Wow, that's muktzeh. The used match, you can't make fire with it anyways. It's just the opposite. If the match is used, it's absolute muktzeh because it's a dysfunctional item. Like a twig, like rock, sand outside. It has no function. A match that you can make fire with has a use. So it's a keli, it's a vessel. Just like a pen. So it's non-absolute muktzeh. Now, could you take matches off the table after you finish bench lift? You don't want matches on the table? Obviously, you probably don't. My wife always asks me or one of my sons to take it off. That's definitely the right thing to do. But essentially, if there was no one else, there was no men around, and the reason why you want the matches off is because you don't want the kid to take the matches, and right? So you're moving the matches not because you want to protect the matches, you're moving it for a purpose. Non-absolute muktzeh is allowed to be moved for a purpose that's going to benefit you. Like you're allowed to move the fan if you want it to blow on you. You don't want it to blow on you. You want the matches to be moved so it doesn't. Right? It's like the fan. The fan, you don't want the fan to blow on you. You don't want the matches to do something that's not very good. The kid grabs the matches. So really, if the reason why moving the matches is because of safety, you are allowed to move it, but if you have men around, it's better to ask them to do it.
Because they haven't accepted jobs.
Why? Because really you're allowed to, but I just, certain things, it might be better just, it's my feeling, like people see it and they learn and they say, oh, you're allowed to move mat, you're allowed to move muktzeh, what's going on? It's, for some people, it looks strange, like, well, you're not allowed to, it becomes like, it becomes very obvious to people. If you're doing it in front of other people, and they can learn from you. Even though it's not real Marasai is only Chacham said. But I don't feel it's better if you're able to. I'm saying you're allowed halachically if you don't have anyone else. But you can ask a man to do it. And if you do it, if no one sees anyways how you're doing it, so do it because halachically you're allowed.
Would we
Yeah.
ask a man because he hasn't accepted Shabbos yet, or?
Oh, you're right, because the man didn't accept. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, because they didn't accept Shabbos yet. Yeah, right. Yeah, clear. Candles.
No, it's the one.
Candles that were not lit at Shabbos is non-absolute. If it was lit, it's absolute. A tray for the lighter, but not the tray that you use at Shabbos that the lighter is sitting on, right? I'm talking about a tray that's you use for a lighter. It's in the china closet. This tray you always use to put the lighter on it. Now you didn't use it this Shabbos. It's just a tray, but you use it for the lighter, so it's non-absolute. It's like a regular tray. Oh, I need a tray. I'm going to use it, but that's what you always use it for. And that's just a regular tray, but it's used for lighter, so it's non-absolute muktzeh.
But if it was used that.
But that
Shabbos-
means you could use it if you want to move it. But what was I saying? But that means you could move it if you want to use it. Now you decide you want to put something else on it. Non-absolute muktzeh could be moved to use it for a permitted purpose. So by default, you just might be able to move it anyways. Just can't move it to protect it, or without a purpose. Yeah, I'm sorry. Want to say something?
If we only have one tray and we used it that week, it would be absolute muktzeh.
Correct. Right. A battery is non-absolute muktzeh. It's a keli. You can use it for things. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
About the candles thing and the table. Okay. So, the table, like with moving and you wanna put the bread on the table.
Oh, so
That whole
we're
thing,
going
the
to
only-
get to that. We're going to get to that.
Okay.
Um,
Cause that's only if you
Maybe
light
we
the
should-
candles on the table. Like, we
Right.
don't light the candles on the table in the door. So. we
okay,
don't
so
need
let's
that.
discuss it. I was going to discuss other things first, but maybe we'll do that because otherwise, now we have 50 minutes that we could focus on this 1,000%. So let's start this topic. We're going to do that. Other things I'll do another time.
I was at
Okay.
770 and I moved the table and I was like, oh no, but then I was like,
You
wait,
move the table, then what? Had lighter on it?
no, it didn't have anything, so I was just like, what?
Oh, you thought maybe I liked it before
Yeah.
Shabbos.
I don't even know.
Okay, so something called a bustus. We started it last time. We sort of like just flew right over it, but we didn't really get into it. And it's right here, bustus. Bustus means a base. Bustus is a base. Okay, let's put it here. So if this tape, if I have the hook, the push on the table before Shabbos, and it goes into Shabbos, it's on the table. There's nothing else on the table, so the table becomes a bustus, a base for the muktzeh, which means the table becomes exactly like the muktzeh, the same status. That means bustus, a base, which means that it becomes a base for the muktzeh, the same status. So generally, when you hear people use the term bustus, it's really another type of muktzeh. We gave different categories of muktzeh. It's another category, the category of bustus. Like, hey, why the tail muktzeh? Because it's a bustus. Now, bustus means a base. So really, it's not muktzeh because it's a base. Well, it could be a base for svarim. Before Shabbos, I put a bunch of svarim over here. Now, Shabbos, the tail will be a bustus. a basis for permitted items. So, but generally, people use the term basis, they mean it's muktzeh, because a basis means because a base for issa. But technically, it can become a base also for permitted items. It could be a base for both, for muktzeh and non-muktzeh items. So you can have basis with issa for prohibited items, or with heter, and for permitted items. You can have, it could be a base for both. So if, let's say, before Shabbos, we have the light on the table, and there's also chal on the table. Now, it's still a base for prohibited items, for the light, but it's also a base for chal. So what's the halacha if it's a base for both? We have to know which is more important. Is the Isser more important, or is the Heter more important? Oh, so if you have chal on the table, we say the chal is more important than the leichter. Because the mitzvah of eating chal on Shabbos is more important than having a candle at the table. We said if a person doesn't have, back in the days, the person when people were very poor in those days, and the halacha said that if you don't have enough money to buy both challah and a candle, so you buy challah. So challah is more important than the candle. If you don't put challah, you put svarim. So many people say sefer is also considered more important. Not sure why, because the mitzvah light Shabbos candles, but it seems that b'diavad, there are opinions that say it's accepted. But it's better to put challah. Now, you can have a situation where the heter with the isser could be more important. So let's give another example. So you have a drawer, and in the drawer you have money and you have a pair of glasses. So the glasses cost, let's say, $200, and the money, you have $1,000 in there. So the money's worth more than the glasses. So the question is, does the drawer become a base? If the drawer is a base for money, it means I cannot open up this drawer. And if we're saying the money is worth more than the glasses, that means I cannot open up this drawer. However, if this is my only pair of glasses and I need these glasses, then even though the money is $1,000, but I need my glasses. Now the glasses is more important to me than the money. So now this drawer will become a basis for Isser and Heter, and the Heter, the glass, is considered worth more important to me. Then it becomes the same like challah on the table. You have leichter on the table with challah. We say the challah is more important. Now the table is not a basis, is not a base just for Isser. Now, when we say in the case of the challah, that the challah is more important, so now the table is not a base just for Isser, it's a base for Isser and Heter. And because the Heter is more important than the challah, so now we view it as if it's a base for Heter. Or in the case of the drawer, that because the glass is more important to me, now we consider it like a base for Heter, which means what? That, okay, I'm allowed to move the table, I'm allowed to open the drawer. No, it's not a blanket heter. Okay, now you're allowed to move the table. So just because you have challah on the table, and now we're saying it's not a base just for Isser, it's a base for both, and the heter is worth more. So we go according to the heter. We don't view it just as a base for Isser. It doesn't mean, oh, so now I can move the table without any restrictions. Now I can open the drawer without any restrictions. There are still restrictions, which we're going to talk about. But before we talk about that, I first want to clarify what are situations where it won't be a basis. In other words, so you have situations where it's a basis. So when we use the term basis means that it's a base for Isser and you cannot move it at all. When we say it's not a basis, what we mean is it's not a base just for Isser. There's also heter, and the heter is worth more. And therefore, we would view it as a base for Isser, which would mean that the table becomes just as Mukzeh as the Mukzeh itself. So when do we say that it's not in the category of a basis, meaning that it's not like the Mukzeh itself, but it's in this other category, where you will be able to move it under certain conditions. So that could even be, even if if there's only Isser there. So let's say there's only Isser on the table. There's no heter, there's no Isser, there's money on the table. And the money was put there. When was the money put there? Not before Shabbos. It was placed there during Bein HaShmashos. So let's say Shkia sunset, like last Shabbos Shkia was, let's say about 7:50, right? And now money was put on the table after Shkia. 8:05, money was put on the table. Now, how could someone put money on the table after sunset? Let's say you asked a non-Jew. Let's say a non-Jew put money on the table because you asked him to. Let's say it was permitted. Let's say whatever the case is, or he put it there in a way where you wanted it to be there. So now you have money on the table that came there not from the beginning of Shabbos. It came there after the sun set already.
It's during 18 minutes.
No, after the 18 minutes.
Oh.
After sunset. After the sunset, because Shabbos already began. And now, Mukzeh was placed on the table with your consent. So you wanted to be there. But it wasn't there from the beginning of Shabbos, meaning from before the sun set until after dark. But there's only money on the table. There's nothing else. The table also will not become a basis, even though there's only Mukzeh there. There's only money there. But it wasn't there the entire time from when the sun set until it became dark. So it's synonymous with the chleich there that has chal on the table. It's the same exact category. It's not a basis, meaning the table does not become exact like the muktzeh, but there is muktzeh on the table. So therefore, there is going to be some restrictions, even though the table is not in the same category as the muktzeh itself. I'm going to be allowed to move it. Like we have chal on the table, we know there's chal, and that means you can move the table. Everyone knows that. You can move the table. But it's not a blanket head, you can move it under all conditions. Because at the end of the day, there is still muktzeh on the table. So there are some restrictions. Another example where it won't be a bus is, again, other examples that would be in the same category, like if chal on the table, the same exact category. It's not a bus, you're allowed, but there are restrictions. Then it would be, if you forgot it there, you come to your room, and you realize that you left your wallet on your bed. You left your wallet on the desk, on the table. You meant to put it away, but you left it there. It was there the entire Bein HaShmashos, from before the sun set until dark, was there the whole time. There was nothing else on it. The table, the bed, the desk does not become a basis. It does not become the same category like the muktzeh itself. Even though all there was muktzeh, there was no chal there was no svarim. It doesn't become a basis because you forgot. That's not what you wanted. That wasn't your decision. It was without your intention. It has to be with your intention. Another example would be if even if it was placed with intention. You have a guest, you invite a guest to your house, and in one of the tables, the living room, the table there, or wherever it is, one of the desks, the guest put his pocketbook there, wallet, whatever, looked it in, and it was there the entire Bein HaShmashos, nothing else. But it's your house. You didn't want it to be there. That table will now become a base because no one could make your object become muktzeh. It's your house, it's your objects. No one else has the right meaning, you don't just mean right legally, mean halachically, it doesn't have the power to take something that belongs to you and make it become muktzeh, should become prohibited. So again, that table that your guest put something there without your consent, you didn't want it to be there, but they wanted it to be there, but it's your house, that table again will not be a basis. So it's the same exact category, just like the leichter with chal on the table, the same thing. It's not a base, it's not become a base for muktzeh, meaning there is muktzeh on it, but it's not a base, meaning that the table, the desk, is not the same status like the muktzeh itself. Now, so what's the halacha for all these situations where it's not buses? It's not a buses. You could move it as long as it's not for the purpose of the muktzeh. In other words, pretty much you can move it. When can't you move it? If you're moving it because you want to use the muktzeh or you want to protect the muktzeh. So let's say you have leichter and chal on the table. It's not a basis because it's there before Shabbos. Now you can move the table. Now, why do you want to move the table? Well, let's say, I'm not saying it's common, but let's say I want to move the table because it's dark in the other room. I want to bring light into the next room. I want to bring light into the next room. So I'm going to carry the table with the light into the next room because I need light in the next room. So I'm moving it for the purpose of the muktzeh. The challah doesn't help. If you have challah there, doesn't help. You can't move it. Because you want to use the muktzeh. I'll give you another example where you're not allowed. Why do I want to move the table? It's a very expensive light. My life would cost $10,000. I don't want these people going around, the waiters, the big event, and you don't want people to steal it. So you want to pick up the table, the light, and the challah, bring it to the next room so no one will steal the light, no one will steal the light then. You're not allowed, because to protect the muktzeh, you're not, the challah doesn't help. Now you can say, so what do? You have to let your life to be stolen. We're discussing what you can't do. You can't do this. Now, in a case of a big loss, you're allowed to ask a non-Jew to move muktzeh. So you can ask one of the workers there to move the table there, someone you trust, obviously, yeah, and bring the muktzeh into the next room. But you yourself, you can't because the challah does not help in that situation. Yeah.
You have to ask them to move the whole table, or could you ask them to move the muktzeh itself?
Okay, so we're asking the non-Jew to move. So generally, you'll ask a non-Jew to move muktzeh if it's going to be a big loss. You're allowed to. But could you tell him to move the leichter, or we're going to move with the table, everything together? It's a good question. Never thought of it. Perhaps, not really sure. It could be, I mean, I can't say for sure. It might be better to have them move with the table itself. Is there an advantage why you want them to move the light itself? Or if there's no difference, I would say with the table, because now you're minimizing the transgression. You're minimizing the severity of what you're telling them to do. Now they're doing something that's not actually picking up the muktzeh itself. So most probably that would be a better way to go. But I don't think you have to be so strict about it. If it's any difficulty in that, I would say you could be lenient. You're allowed to tell a non-Jew for a loss. But if there's absolutely no difference and it's not a big deal, this probably would be better to have them just do it with the table itself. I would say. Any questions? It's clear? Huh? How what? It's a good question. Okay, so the general law is you're allowed to tell a non-Jew to do a rabbinic prohibition. It's a rabbinic prohibition, muktzeh, rabbinic. Because it's a big loss. What's called a big loss? A big loss is relative to the person. Yeah, and there's no exact amount. You cannot say 500, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. You can't put a number to it because a person who has no money and a person who's a millionaire can't compare. So it really depends on the person. The person has to be honest with himself. Like, is this going to be like? It's probably there are sort of go into maybe more details. Maybe we'll talk about another class to give a little more guidelines. But generally, that's what it is. It goes according to the person. But, you know, $10,000 is a big loss for most people. I think so. But someone who's multi-billionaire, no, you can't. It's not called $10,000. It's something. It's nothing for them. I call it a big loss. But for most people, $10,000 would be. Even for rich people, $10,000 is a loss. But so let's whether it's 2,000, 3,000, then already. Right, so there's no, you can't give an exact number. The person has to be honest with himself. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we'll continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.
Thank you.